I'm sure every male out there remembers the Tomb Raider series featuring Lara Croft, one of the biggest and most famous heroines from an age that we have repeatedly been told didn't actually have any strong female characters. Well, the Tomb Raider series is receiving a remaster, and I know what you're all thinking. They're probably going to make her into a man. Or, at the very least, they're gonna trans and black her. Surely something weird's gonna happen, right? Because these were definitely games of a bygone age. Lara Croft herself was certainly designed to appeal to a male gaming audience. To draw the male gaze, as we have been told repeatedly, is so very, very negative, right? It also included a fair bit of good old-fashioned violence and opposition towards various indigenous enemies. Very colonialist in its own ways. And yet, despite this, the developers, Crystal Dynamics, has actually elected to keep the, quote, offensive depictions of people and cultures rooted in racial and ethnical prejudice in the game. Congratulations. That's one step in the right direction. They've actually simply just remastered the game, upping the graphics, fixing it a little bit here and there, and otherwise kept everything similar. And you know what? That's kind of the point of remasterings, by and large. Now, sure, you can certainly make the argument that some changes are better than others. Maybe you want to, tighten up the controls or fix some of the frustrations from all the games. Definitely, there is an argument to be made there. Although, in some certain cases, the frustration was in and of itself a part of the game. No one would ever argue, for example, that you should fix the giant in Skyrim smacking you and sending you into the skybox. But they did decide to release a disclaimer with the game, which is this one right here. The games in this collection contains offensive depictions of people and cultures rooted in racial and ethnic prejudice. These stereotypes are deeply harmful, inexcusable, and do not align with our values at Crystal Dynamics. Well, seeing as you are re-releasing them, in fact you are actively polishing them, making them even more pretty racial and prejudicial than ever before. I don't know about that. I think actually, in fact, they are rather excusable, and I do, in fact, they do represent the values of Crystal Dynamics, which I presume is simply staying afloat and solvent. Rather than removing this content, we have chosen to present it here in its original form, unaltered, in the hopes that we may acknowledge its harmful impact and learn from it. I don't know about that. So, I've seen this being described as a baby step in the correct direction, and I actually disagree. I actually think this is a fairly sizable step in the correct direction, because the developers looked at this and went, oof, that's definitely not in line with modern day sensibilities, alright, but it was really popular. We could probably sell it for a lot of money and a lot of copies if we simply just keep it true to itself. And we've seen every time when anybody's tried to actually change this stuff to be more progressive, it's usually resulted in, well, a boycott at best, and outright the destruction of the entire company at worst. See Abolition. And so they have elected to focus in on profits over politics. And you know what? That is a seismic change in the gaming market, which has been solely focused on the politics side of things over the profit side of things for the last decade or so, due to the overabundance of investment cash that could essentially take the place of actual purchases and sales. It is difficult to overstate the potential importance of this decision, as for the first time in a very long time, a company has elected to go against the politics, and let's even be charitable here and believe for a second that they believe the nonsense that they're spouting, to go against their own convictions and political beliefs in order to provide an experience that their customers want. Now, if I was to be entirely honest, I'd probably say that they themselves can already smell the bullshit and have been for quite some time, because I don't believe that any sensible person actually believes half of this garbage, although a fair few sheep do, and recognize them for what it is, tools of certain interested parties. And simply presenting them then in a straight up way and go like, this was how it was back then, we're not going to mess with it or anything, well, that is what has created the big hits of the past. Lord of the Rings, for example, celebrated as one of the greatest cinematic achievements ever, became that way primarily because they looked at it and thought, okay, we are not going to put any of our own stuff in this. We're not going to put our own convictions or our own politics. We are going to tell the tale that Tolkien wanted to tell. Now, granted, we're talking about two slightly different degrees of storytelling here. Tomb Raider and the Lord of the Rings. I don't expect this will be quite as lauded in terms of storytelling or anything like that. But the underlying philosophy is the same. And it is the philosophy that gave us markedly, observably, universally better entertainment in the past than we receive now. So, yeah. I actually think that Crystal Dynamics has done very well here. And sure, you know, the little thing at the beginning there goes like, no, you know, we still have to kowtow to the Commissar at least a little bit, otherwise we'll get kablamoed. Fair enough. You know what? That is actually true. In fact, I kind of called this already like a year or two ago when I said that we are going to start seeing companies begin to move in the correct direction. In other words, to put the consumer's needs and desires over those of the activists, while still attempting to visually and verbally kowtow to the people in power. Because that's kind of what you have to do. Any rebellious movement must pay homage to the powers that be. They must bow at the altar, lest the wrath of God descend upon them. They must be able to demonstrate at least a base level of obeisance, right? Of an obediency. Otherwise, they'll be crushed. And at the moment, right now, it is important to not forget, all the levers of actual institutional power, of regulatory power, of governmental power, is still firmly in the grasp of the progressive left. We don't have control over these yet. We will eventually, but culture is always downstream from politics. No, politics, no. Other way around, but you catch my drift, right? And so companies will still need to offer the occasional baby to Moloch Baal, whilst they are continuing to move slowly but surely towards something more beneficial for all of us. So I'm actually entirely happy to praise Crystal Dynamics for what they've done here. They've brought back an old classic that we can't, believe our lying eyes existed back in olden days, because there were just no female characters back then. There was no positive representation of strong, independent females. There were just lots of men and sexism. Of course, natürlich. And so even if they need to, again, offer up the metaphorical baby to the burning demon, I think we should allow it. Point it out, certainly, laugh at it, and elect to double down on the harmful stereotypes, most assuredly so, but still recognize as well that this is certainly a good evolution. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.